Alrighty. Well, hey folks, how's it going? Small Engine Redemption here, a Matthew, and I thought I'd do a video on assembling this MS271 and be a chatterbox a little bit. I have a lot of videos that I'd really like to post on my camera that I purchased, but the problem is I'm having issues with conversion. I'm not a big tech guy. I bought a fairly cheap camera off of eBay off of Amazon for only a couple $100. And I know with the prices of stuff today, that's expensive to me, but compared to the average camera that has the functions this thing's supposed to have, very cheap. And working with the seller right now to resolve my issues, the one thing I will say is I noticed by the reviews, the seller seems to be trying their very best to resolve the issues that people have. And for a $150, $200 camera, what do you expect? There's probably going to be some issues. But if I can get them resolved and it can function, I'll keep it. So I'm trying to bring you guys as many videos as I can, just essentially to show you how to work on chainsaws. And a lot of what I'm doing is just basic stuff for the average homeowner guy. I'm not here porting and customizing chainsaws really. That is something I've done in the past, not porting specifically, but customization, and that I would like to. I've been studying porting for quite some time now, and I say studying by shout out to Tin Man Saws. I've been watching him for a while now. I've been watching Iron Horse for a while now, and if you understand a two-stroke, I think these guys are right. Anybody can port. I don't think they're wrong. These guys on YouTube that say anybody can port and you don't need all these fancy tools, they're right. It's just like this stuff, you guys. These are to put in wrist pin circlips for a piston, and they're $100 a piece. 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter. I don't have the 8 and I don't have the 14 yet because they're $100 a piece. And I don't work on 8 and 14 millimeter wrist pins that much. But you don't need them. You can do it with needle nose, especially if they're aftermarket or larger saws. They have a different clip that goes like that. I don't have any in front of me, sorry. But the C-clips, I like the stock C-clips. These are C-clips. Stock C-clips on most of your steel, on your Meteor pistons, these as well. And those tools are made for C-clips, but the other ones do work. The other ones they have an additional thing. Boy, I wish I had one in front of me. I don't know off the top of my head which Meteor might have those in it, because there are some big chainsaws that have that clip that comes down right here and right here, and that's the only difference. It kind of comes down in a loop right here and here on the sides. And so those are easier with needle nose. These are hard with needle nose, but it's possible. Needle nose, one of these. I've done it with many different things, you guys. And so I'm trying to help just people to be able to see. There's simple little things on YouTube that I've discovered. I'm working on cars, and I'm a carpenter, but the carpentry things I've learned on YouTube, how to do different electrical stuff, because I'm the guy that I can't afford to pay electricians $700 to wire a 12 by 16 shed for me, and they'd probably want way more than that because I went with 20s instead of 15s for my outlets, because I wanted something a little stronger. I just wanted to never have issues. I want to run whatever tools I want to run out here and not have problems until I build my shop. And so that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. I'm not an authorized steel dealer. I am not an authorized mechanic. I'm just a hobbyist. I'm not an official business. And so I sell stuff online, and I try to be open and honest and clear with people. I buy used saws. I try and bring them back to life. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes my saws have broken fins and stuff. And those are the saws that I don't really sell online. I'd rather keep them local. I still warranty them, but the reason I'd rather keep saws with little certain issues local is because if something goes wrong, it doesn't cost me $100 to ship it if it's under warranty, back and forth, because I like to cover my stuff. I like to back my stuff. I want people to be able to go pick this up out of their garage if they have a windstorm, like Andy there, one of my customers in Alabama, flooded his saw when he first got it in the mail, and later that day started right up, and I checked on him today, and he tells me it's running great. I had 3 trees fall the other day in the storm, and I cut them all up with it, and it no problems. Fires right back up if I set it down and shut it off. And a couple of people, their stuff's running great. I got one guy, I'm going to travel this weekend. It's about an hour and a half away. He bought a 280 off of me. I cut with it all day the day he picked it up. And he's got a 170 as well. And his 280 wouldn't start and his 170 did. But we've had some really weird weather. So we're going to go see what's up with him. But he bought a saw that didn't have any of those quirks with it. I just didn't quite have the time to cut 4 tanks with it. And since he was only an hour and a half away, I said, you know, I've run it through 4 idle. I've run it through 2 cutting. It really should be 2 more, but I just don't have time. And so I was going to go up anyways, but we'll take care of that. But yeah, enough of that jabbering. So I'm going to put this 271 back together. I don't work on these regularly. I've done a few. And so I just like to disclose there are certain things I do. I'm not recommending anybody take my advice, but if you're a guy at home and you're just struggling with something simple on a chainsaw, like a throttle cable, or just how to put something stupid together and you can't figure it out, hopefully this will help you. The service manual says to do certain things certain ways, and I don't always do that. Also, there are particular things that call for certain specialty tools that I prefer not to spend the money on because I don't need them. Or they're just too expensive even if I want them. There are other specialty tools I don't have yet that I want. So basically, this saw, I took 2 MS171s in trade for a 311. It was a part trade, part cash deal between the 2 of us. And they're lightly used saws, I think. The other 271, the transfer covers, one of them has a pinhole air leak, and so I'll JB weld that. I know guys that JB weld those entire covers back on, which I think is crazy. But I'll JB weld that, and, you know, we'll try to keep that saw local, just in case something does happen to it. I don't think it will. It's such a slow leak that most guys wouldn't even care about it or think it would matter, but to me it does matter. And so this saw did not get the top end removed. I did a vacuum pressure test on it, and that's a video I have on the camera. Hopefully by the time, if this gets listed online, I'm able to get that off the camera because I want to show that video since there's no photos coming on this top end being removed. It's not been removed. I've done vacuum pressure test. We did it with the steel flange through the impulse here, or not the impulse, I'm sorry, through the intake boot. That flange blocks off the impulse hole on the boot here, and it's all sealed up. So no crankshaft seals needed. Steel OEM crankshaft seal still in it. I'd love to meet the tech that Durcoed this top end on though, because he used way too much, but it still works. That's the good thing about that stuff. Too much is usually better than not enough, but you don't want to use too much. And sometimes even not enough works out just fine. Nice thin paper layer on each surface that's coming together, in my opinion, is great. I always like to let it set 1 minute, bring them together just snug, let it set another minute or 2, and then I'll half torque it down, and after 10 minutes I come and final torque it. That might not be, that's another one of those things. That's not 100% how MotoSeal, Permatex MotoSeal Gray, their instructions say to use it, but that is what has never failed me. That process has never failed me. If it has ever failed, it was my human error. I missed a spot. I got wet thread lock on it. I had oil that when I put my piston and stuff together, the oil hit the Permatex. It was always human failure. That process, put it on each surface, paper thin, 1 minute. Make sure it's even. Put the surfaces together snug. Your cylinder and your pan together snug. 1 minute. Half tighten it to torque, and by that I mean you're just not wrenching it all the way down. You're going halfway. I'll leave that for about 10 minutes, and then I torque it to spec. I'll vacuum pressure test it. I'll run the saw, and then I'll go back and make sure those bolts, just like muffler bolts, didn't loosen up at all. And it's never failed me. And so I'll continue to use that process. So moving on, we're going to put this saw together from where it is. Let me open the door here. It's windy out. I haven't had many nice days where I can open these shed doors, my shed shop. So I'm going to angle you guys down a little bit, and you can hang out, and I hope there's something that you see on this video that helps you. And again, I'm not saying I'm doing the perfect way or the right way. I don't always do things in an exact order. I have read the service manual on this particular model. So I know how it says to do each thing, but I can't remember it all. But anyways, basically our top end's already on, our rear handle and our chassis are already on together, our wrap handle's on, our brake handle's on, which means our chain brake parts are on. We don't have a ton of stuff to put on this saw, but where I'm going to start is, I'm going to start with my flywheel. And the reason I like to do my flywheel opposed to my other side first is because when I put my clutch on, instead of using rope or a piston stop, I like to grab, and it's not the way the manual says to do it, I like to grab my flywheel and put my clutch on with an impact. I've never had any issues. Now I've broken some flywheel keys, but they're my saws, and so if that happens, that's fine. Boy, I love it. I've got this lined up. There's a key on that flywheel, and it lines up. This is an MS271. Some of them have a separate key. This one is pre-fit. Now, here's a trick. Again, not in the service manual, but for me it works because the way I do things. I just like to give that a couple taps with a rubber mallet, because that way, when I put my flywheel bolt on, it's not gonna strip out my key, which I don't see my flywheel bolt. Bear with me, guys. I thought I had everything out of this container for one saw to be set together. I'm not entirely sure. I usually keep the flywheel nut on the flywheel magnet, but I changed it up because when you give it ultrasonic bath, here we go. There it is. See, another bag with the same parts. I was able to see it easier. When you put flywheels in the ultrasonic parts washer, these magnets, when the bolts on the flywheel magnet tends to collect all of the stuff that's being vibrated off of the parts. And so I've stopped leaving my flywheel nuts on my flywheels because that's a little bit tedious to clean off. Alright, so this is going to be a 13 mil. Again, thought I had everything set up so that I wasn't doing this, where's this or where's that? But now I'm doing where's this or where's that. So that's why I don't usually rehearse anything, guys, because even if I rehearse it, I'm still a human being that's likely to get it wrong. Okay, so we got our T25. We have a 13 mil. This is a steel chainsaw. HUSQVARNA is a little bit different. And obviously other models might be different. 3/4 for our flywheel. 8 mil for our muffler nuts and our carburetor nuts. And that's mostly what we need. Some of the screws on this are T20s. If I do need that, I got a T20 set up right here. This is also my flathead Phillips if I happen to need it for anything. Alright, so moving on. We've started our flywheel nut. I'm going to turn it by hand at first. Since this is not on my impact, I should do it every time, but I don't. I'm going to snug it up. Again, you guys, I don't know that I recommend putting this on with an impact, but I trust what I'm doing. You do it your way. I can tell you, I believe, if I remember right, on the flywheel of the service manual for Stihls is to use the piston stop. And most guys will tell you, oh my goodness, these things, you guys, not great for that part. They're great for getting measurements. They're great for certain things, but they just tend to snap. And this is an OEM Stihl, and I can't tell you how many of these I break when I do that stuff. But I get in a rush, and I do things that'll be faster and easier and convenient. So it's not necessarily wrong, but okay. And I just kind of use an impact because I've kind of learned with my specific DeWalt impact where to wrench things. And when I do stuff in the chassis, and especially plastic, doing wrap handles, bolts like this, I only bring them down so far and then I hand tighten. Alright, so now that I've got my flywheel on, I'm turning it over to do my other side. And we're going to start, if you guys are doing one of these and you don't know what order stuff goes in, and you can't find a video that you can easily access what part, you can Google your model, like STIHL MS271 IPL, DIYparts.com, or Libs manuals, and you can often find what order things need to go in. The worm gear needs to be greased according to the service manual, and I think just smart anyways, because anywhere you've got friction, and you can have grease, you should have grease, even if the manual doesn't call for it. I put it on chain tensioners, and all kinds of stuff. I just think it helps protect stuff. Okay, we'll put that in there, turn it, make sure it's functioning. And it went in awfully easy, so I'm just double inspecting. Usually you have to turn them a little bit to get them to go in. That one went in awful easy. Okay, but we'll test our oiler when we put it all together. Next is what's called your rotor washer. On the STIHLs, it says top. Okay, top means outside of the chainsaw is always top. When you're working this way toward you, you're top. Okay, so that stays facing out. That goes after your worm gear. Our oil pump is already in. I never took it out of this saw. Again, it's a very low hour saw, so I didn't take it down as far as I do a lot of chainsaws. If saws pass vacuum pressure test and they're not vintage saws, I typically don't take them down that far. There's our bar nuts, our circlip, our retaining washer, and that bag is done. All right, so next, after your retaining washer goes your clutch. On your clutch, you're going to have a 3/4 that's recessed out. Again, steel chainsaw. Other saws are different. This side is smooth. That's usually how you can tell, because this is so you can put your scrench, technically, 3/4 on there to tighten or loosen. So that has to go top, out, facing you. Reverse threaded on your clutch, so lefty loosey, righty tighty does not apply. It's going to be left on that one. That's going to be a 3/4. Now, again, proper way to do this, technically, get you a 3/4 wrench, put you a rope with a knot. I say a knot. I don't use the end. You can do it like this. I usually use it, I have one here. I like to use one that has a knot in it. It just seems to work for me, okay? Or you can use a piston stop if you really want. And then you hand tighten it. I use impact. I have health problems. This has always worked for me. Plus, there's not a lot of money in what I do, so time is of the essence sometimes. Reverse threaded again. This is so dangerous, you guys. If you've not done this frequently, you can break fingers. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. This is just my way of doing it. That's why I'm telling you the right way. Guys say you can damage your crankshaft. I've never had that issue. So please, again, hand tighten, rope down your piston or a piston stop, preferably. Or you could technically do the 2 wrenches. You could take your 13 over here to hold this and then tighten it. No, that doesn't work. Sorry, guys. That loosens. That goes opposite directions. I meant that to remove, not tighten. Okay, next, you got your clutch on. You want to have your sprocket. Okay, now I do recall I wanted to put new bearings on this particular model here, this particular saw. So we're going to put a new clutch drum bearing in. These are aftermarket clutch drum bearings. They are metal, not plastic, which sometimes I wonder if that causes more heat and friction. But they seem to work okay. And I grabbed the wrong size. Okay. Let me get the right size here. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Is we're going to adjust you guys, because now I'm looking at the screen and you can't quite see everything I'm doing. I apologize, guys. I'm taking this on the phone because I want you to see it. We're just going to use an OEM steel. We're going to use a new plastic OEM steel because I don't think I have an aftermarket on this. Okay, so again, we'll take I just use a screwdriver. I got a thing of ATV red grease over here is what I use. I find that seems to be as close to the steel grease that I can find. The steel grease is outrageous, and I don't think it's really honestly any different. It's probably the same thing. and then I'll just thin coat on the outside and the inside. Too much is better than not enough, in my opinion, on this specific application. Crankshaft bearings are, yeah, I don't know if too much is better than not enough in that case. But this one, yeah, you can wipe excess in any application, but you're not gonna have your saw not start. Now, on your sprocket, on Stihl chainsaws, you'll have a notch out. And what that notch out is for is that worm gear we put in has a little arm. See if you guys can see it. Get this alarm on my phone off. Let's see. Right there at the top, you can barely see it. Okay, I can't point to it because I'm holding the saw, but look between the clutch and the chain brake band, and you'll see it sticking out. That's your worm gear, which only turns when your sprocket turns if your saw is tuned right. So we're going to put that notch out over our worm gear and then put our bearing in. And it can be tight, you guys, especially if it's a new one. It's meant to be a little snug. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble getting them in. Sometimes I put the bearing on first, and this one seems to want to give me a little bit of an issue. So we're going to pull a sprocket, hopefully. Yeah, see, that one's a little bit of a pain there. Does happen. Just gotta take our time with it. These bearings are almost always 10-13-10 on the mid-class Stihls. I'm fairly certain I grabbed the right one, but I did have a batch of Stihl bearings that I've been having more of a issue with being too snug. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try having the bearing in and put it on. I got to find my worm gear again. Line that up. There we go. Okay. I feel like. Alright, now what I'm doing is I'm just looking through here to make sure my worm gear is inside that notch in the sprocket. I can actually see it. And it is. Typically your sprocket won't go down unless that worm gear is broken or sheared off a little bit at the top there of the arm. And so you just always want to try and make sure when you're reassembling a saw you get that right. Now next is your retaining washer. And these also are fairly universal. You will see slightly different kinds with Stihl, especially some of the really old like 024s and 028s. These will have little bumps on it. And it's slightly different. But if you are just taking your own saw apart, you should already have the same one that came on it, and as long as it's working, there's no issues. This is one of those parts Stihl doesn't really have their numbers stamped into. I'm surprised because almost everything, even their tiny little crankshaft seals, they've got Stihl stamped into it and a part number, which is awesome when you need a part and the part number stamped right into it. I love that. Okay, so that's good. That's functioning fine. Alright, so next, on the MS271, we've already got our chain tensioner in. That's going to be one T20 screw if yours is off. There is a larger chain brake cover. I'm just trying to look and make sure everything is together. We didn't take our chain brake off of this one. I did just notice, and this is why I'm glad I'm looking, I noticed there is one buffer stop missing. So I'm going to see if I have one real quick. Okay, unfortunately I have a used one. I just used my last two on I believe these are similar to several models. The 441 uses this as well. It looks the same, and I think it's the same part number. A foam piece, you guys, and STIHL has their part number stamped into it. I think the whole part number is on these. Nope, most of it. You can see 1141/1103B. And so again, if you Google STIHL MS271 IPL, you can look up AV system and find this part number if you need this foam pad. These are, I hate these, they're horrible. I've actually ordered some aftermarket which look rubber instead of foam, and when they get here we'll see what they're like. But this is a $10 part. It's like $7.99, and then I can pay $1.95 freight if I get it directly from STIHL. And online I'm probably going to pay about $1 or $2 more than that after shipping. And so this one is still got its coating on it, and I say coating because this is literally foam that when oil and gas hits it, it just falls apart and deteriorates. And so this has got a coating on it, so it's still plenty good. But one of those parts that that's not going to kill the functionality of your saw, but it's going to cause extra vibration and extra movement that might cause other issues. All right, so that's in. And on this one, there's nothing in the center. On the 441, that's flat and covered. It's called a buffer, and it's a different part number. The 441 has those inside. Okay, so this will go over here. Normally, I don't leave all the screws in the chassis unless I'm only taking a saw part way down and it's not that dirty, because they don't get in the way. This one was not terribly dirty, and since I had 2 of them on my bench, I left the screws in the chassis. So these are T20s. You're gonna have 3 of them, and I really hope you guys can see what I'm doing. You got one here up by your chain brake cover, and you have one down here just above where your chain brake band attaches, also with another T20 screw. Helps if we don't lose our bit. My bits have been coming out lately. Alright, so this is going to go on, and it should fit right into place. Sorry, on this model, it's got little notches. 1, 2, 3. Hope you guys can see that. And then those go in first on the bottom. In front of this buffer, I like to make sure I do that one first. Push it down, push it in. That way you don't rip that buffer. Be really careful on that part, because again, you guys, why do you want to order a $10 part that none of my STIHL dealers keep in stock, which was crazy to me, which is why I have to pay $2. Cannot believe they keep a part that poorly made in stock. They don't keep it on a pro saw too, nonetheless. The 441s use those, and they didn't have any of the AVs. None of my STIHL dealers had them. Alright. And I do recommend, you guys, I don't do it until final stage, because everything's got to go through testing and be inspected again. So I'm taking all this apart, even though I hate it. It'll eventually come back apart, just so I can check all my parts and make sure they're good. Even though this is a low hour saw, I still like to do it. But when I do the final stage of assembly, I usually will use thread lock. Don't use thread lock on your cylinder bolts if you're using Durco, MotoSeal, anything like that, unless it's 100% dried thread lock, because it will break your seal if it gets in there. 1 drop of thread lock in between your 2 layers of MotoSeal or Durco. I've had leaks that way. One of those human errors I'm talking about. Okay, moving on. Guys, I've kind of just learned the feel for these. You want them tight, not over tight, but if you use thread lock, you don't have to worry about as much on the under tight side. All right, that's done. Chain catch is going to go on last. So that side, we've got our spike, which will be 2 T25s, chain catch, and our we'll put new real quick, what are called bumper stops. I use aftermarkets. These things are cheap enough that even if the aftermarkets fell apart, I have the new ones that don't look that bad, but those will get included with the saw, and I'll put brand new shiny aftermarkets in here. Those just snap. On this one, there's not a top one. I thought there was. I guess not. So there's a bottom one, and then there's two on the clutch cover. So while we've got them out, we'll go ahead and replace the clutch cover one's top. That just snaps in. And honestly, you guys, a little trick. If you're doing your own saw, and either you don't have access to these, or you don't want to pay the $1 something a piece that STIHL's probably charging for them, and you don't want to pay $6 to have 2 98-cent aftermarket ones shipped to you, super glue, whatever, these are really just a stop for your chain. They're just to help your chain from rolling off and hitting stuff. And so once your clutch cover and everything is assembled, just super glue them in or whatever. Again, I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying a guy at home doing this by himself to his own chainsaw could do that. Especially don't do it if you're a small guy like me selling stuff. I would never super glue these in on a saw I'm selling. That would be silly. All right, so that's in. That side's basically done except our clutch cover, which we technically could. I'm supposed to be taking pictures here. That's part of the problem with video on my phone. I forget to take pictures. So we'll take a few pictures real quick. And that's part of the video is going to be, if this sells online or is listed online, the video is going to be part of the description. Okay, there we go. So there's that. All right, so let's see. What would we like to do next? We can, since I've got a lot of stuff on my bench here, I will go ahead. I'll throw the clutch cover on, and I'll just finger tighten these for now to keep it out of the way. And the muffler is going to get painted. I've cleaned it up, sanded it, and scuffed it for paint, but I'm trying to decide if I want to do flat black or metallic on this one. They came metallic, I believe. But so we will paint the muffler, but this is your muffler, and all it is 2 clips, since you won't get to see it in this video. This one's only got one. I gotta get another one, and I can just pop these off with a screwdriver. And then inside there, you use a long reach T25, and you'll have 2 T25s, one here, one here. And these, if they're a little loose, when you put them back in, all you have to do is bend these prongs out just a little bit. You can use pliers to do it. I personally just take my needle nose and just find where it just snugs and then push them down, and that works great. And if you bend them too far, you can always bend them back. So that's that. And then when you put them in, I just put them in, and I hit them with the butt of my screwdriver, and it always works. Works for me. Don't know if that's the right way. That's the way Matthew does it. Don't know how the service manual says to do it. I'm sure STIHL sells a $50 tool to push that little clip in. I say 50 because it's not as required. If it was a required tool, it would be 100 or 150. Okay, moving on. Sorry, I had to get a sip of a drink there. Now these carbs, I have 2 here, and I'm looking at it. I'm thinking I didn't rebuild the carbs yet. These were both running saws, and so I don't always rebuild carbs on running saws. I inspect them, but that plays a part. Again, this is all usually somewhat rehearsed and fly by the seat of my pants. So what else can we do to this saw without the carb going on? You have your shroud here. It's called a shroud. This also has a T20 screw. This one is over here. I just want to make sure that's everything. We're going to end up having this part to our carb body. This airflow device. This goes to our carb and setup in our trigger. And again, OEM versus aftermarket stops. Not difference, really. It's both just plastic pieces. Alright. So we'll go as far as we can. Let me see how long the video is. We're at 35 minutes. I was hoping not to keep it too long. It's a jabbering, guys. I'm not a big talker, and so when I do talk, I talk a lot, unfortunately. Alright. One T20 screw that's going to go there. I really hope, let me check, make sure you guys, I should Turn you up just a little bit for where I'm working. Okay, how's that? Hopefully better. 1 T25 screw for this shroud. It will go behind. Again, I've already had this on. It will go behind there. Just work everything together. On if you're uncertain, guys, don't force. I've broken so many things forcing stuff. I believe this has a little notch out it has to slide into down there. And so, just trying to work that in. Just working it behind the other piece it goes behind. And then there's a little, there we go, there's a little notch right here it has to go down into. And then also over here, if you have this saw in front of you, you can see what I'm talking about. It's fairly obvious. And to get them all to line up at the same time is not always easy. To get everything right. Because there is one more back here that has to clip in. Okay, we got that one. So kind of hold this one if you can and work this one back behind the cylinder. And our screw hole is perfectly aligned. That's sitting flush everywhere. No wires in the way. Now what you want to do is do what I always do. I pulled that wire right. I do this all the time with this wiring and have to take stuff back apart. This has to go back behind that. Now I'm going to try without taking the whole thing out because it's plastic. It did bend pretty easy, fortunately, on this particular saw, but it doesn't always do that, so that will go there. Our other wires are already through. So 1 T20 screw. I don't suppose you have to put thread lock on these, but again, guys, I probably think you should, just to be safe. I think I don't see why it hurts when you take a screw out to put a drop of thread lock on it. And if it's one saw, go you to AutoZone, and oftentimes they have little packets that you can get, like $2 red thread lock. You can even use blue on this application. It's just, to me, a safety measure. These have a great AV, but why not? If your screw's not going to come out again, why not? It's safety. This could be going to California, Maine, Florida. I don't know where it's going. And so I don't want anything to go wrong, because it's very expensive to bring it back to me and fix it if it's my fault. And that's not the only reason. I want somebody to have reliable equipment. Alright, so that goes there. This piece, I can tell what it does. I don't remember what it's called. I've never had to buy one, so even if I have, I've probably forgot by now. It's basically, it takes the air from the flywheel and throws it towards your carb area to keep it cool back here. And so this one is a T25. On a lot of models, it's a T20. But on this particular, and even some of the 271s, I believe, are a T20. Depends on the year. But this one's a T25. And I don't know the thread pitch of everything, guys. Sorry, I don't have that good of a memory. But, again, if you're missing a screw, you can always look up the IPL and go to your local hardware store and get the right pitch, length, everything. Might not necessarily be the same T25 head, might be a flat head, but as long as the pitch, the length, and the thread pitch, the length, and, you know, machined whatever, all matches, I don't know that it has to be a T25. Just look at your application and use your best judgment. All right, so that can go on. Now with your your recoil, this is all together. It's got original rope in it. Again, low hour salt, won't replace it. Might include, if I have time, extra Oregon or aftermarket string with it. We'll see. This just snaps in there, no screws. It's pretty self-explanatory. Tab, 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 tab. Line all the tabs up. And then push it down. This is very flexible to get under your other tabs. It's got one little tab there that's supposed to click, usually clicks in better than that. There we go. Okay, great. Now that goes under your chain brake handle. Just pull your chain brake handle up a little bit. And your chain brake handle sets above it. You will have 4 T25 screws. Again, guys, pitch, thread, length, don't know it. And you'll have a collar. A lot of saws, the screw that goes through this collar is different than the other three. Please understand what you're working on. But this one, it's the same thread pitch as the others. Same length, same pitch. So, this is also a part right now. I'm not going to thread lock yet because this has to potentially come back off for inspection. Whoops, sorry. Get talking. Did that backwards there. Okay, I'm going to snug it with my impact. And then I'm going to hand tighten it. This not only saves me time, again, you guys, I have nerve damage. That's why I use an impact. But use your best judgment. If it's your saw, use whatever you want. Just if you use an impact, be prepared if you're not careful to break stuff. And I hope you can fix it if you do. All right, so that's that. Okay. Next, essentially what would happen, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys, because I will see if this saw runs with the carb as is. I've got to go to a customer's house, and I'm going to be bringing one or two 271s. Gentleman bought a 280 from me. And like I said, he's only tried to start it once, and his 170 started, and his 280 didn't. And I started it while he was here and stuff, but so we're just going to go help him cut some trees to make up for it and see if we can't figure out what his issue was. He's going to try and start it in the meantime, but it's only 3 days away, so. All right, so your carb, you will see down here on the 271 on most models, STIHLs, your carb pushes in, not always. Your fuel line's there. A lot of times your impulse line will have a jet like this on your carb too on the other side or the bottom. This model does not. It only has the fuel inlet. So we're going to line that up. I'm just double checking, making sure I have everything in place. This one does not have the grommet there. It does. See, that's why I like to look. Keep looking. I have this grommet. This will have on it, you guys, oftentimes it will say top or it has lettering. The lettering or the word top always goes facing you. And on this model, you can't put it backwards. On other models like the 290, 029s, you can put it backwards. It just has a little rounded edge, and so for whatever reason it seals better one way than the other. Now your carb goes on. And actually, I think I'm going to use the other one because that has a rusted low jet, and so I want to replace that low jet. This one does not have a rusted low jet. What is the difference between these two carbs? Well, STIHL. That's what I can tell you. It's STIHL MS271. I don't know why did they set one up with a different low than the other. I don't know. Underneath all of this outside attachment, it's the identical carb. So we're gonna use this one, or I'm sorry. Let's see. Yeah, this one, and the reason being, if you guys look at all that rust on that. Boy, it's not focusing tonight. Well, hopefully you guys can see it. There's rust on this black inlet screw, the low screw. So I want to replace that probably. We'll see. Have to see what it looks like when I take it out. We won't go forward with it, but we'll loosen it. All right, so your carb, fuel line. Push that on. Okay, it's in. Kind of looking and inspecting everything. On this, guys, the throttle cable is pretty cool. It's simple. It just pushes, well, it's supposed to just push the throttle up. I'm sure once we get, oh, there we go. I'm sorry. I thought it was already in the latch. There's a latch back here. A little groove on that white piece that was already on that grommet there that it sits in, and then it just pushes up. So it just pushes the throttle up, and that's it. Pretty simple. You don't have to hook it into a carb or nothing like that. Okay, so now, also don't know what the part is, but this will go on. Your kill switch goes in here. So your coil wires will hook up. You'll see the two parts. And if you took it off, you should know. I feel like there should be more wire there, but there's not. So I guess we're going to put this in first. And then use whatever needle nose pliers we have to reach that and get it on for easy. You can use like penetrating oil or something to make stuff, rubber parts slide together, either rubber and plastic. I use press oil. I don't know 100% exactly what press oil is. I always used two-stroke oil and whatever I had in front of me, spit, whatever in the past. But I came across press oil in one of my service manuals from STIHL. So I bought some. It was outrageous, but it works great. It evaporates, and it also apparently helps form a seal on like fuel lines and stuff. Whoops, there goes nerve damage. So what happens when your body has nerve damage. So just gonna try and work in here to plug this wire in. Right now I'm using my hooked needle nose. I know you guys probably don't have the best view on this, unfortunately. I think I bent this clip when I disassembled. These usually are very easy to put on. Kind of surprised this one is not. Okay. This is where I'm just a human being, guys, that is looking for the best way to do this without getting in a rush and destroying anything. I'm trying to, I think the clip ought to bend the other way. I'm going to take this back off, actually. I can tell it had somewhat of a bend in it. I would think there'd be more wire here, but there's not. So the only way that could work is up through. It just seems to me like it would hit. But we're going to try it real quick with it out of the way. Yeah, I don't like it that way. I'm going to bring it down some. Doing it the opposite way. I can't say 100% for certain which way it's supposed to be bent, but it doesn't particularly matter as long as it's out of the way and doesn't hit nothing. And on this saw, there's plenty of room, trust me. Always be careful when you're working with rubber grommets and stuff like this, you guys. You can rip them pretty easy. Even OEM steels, especially if they're dry rot. You don't want to rip a $10 grommet, not if you don't have to. If you don't have to replace it, you don't want to. Trust me, AV stops, or AV annullers and stops and buffers and all that stuff gets expensive real quick. When there's 6 or 7 on a saw that you got to replace at $4 to $12 a piece. And trust me, they get way more expensive than that too. Like the 044s and 046. Boy, this is, I don't recall ever doing a 271 that I struggled with this part. But I am struggling, guys. I'm struggling on this one. Kind of shocking. Just can't quite get the angle of this clip right. I'm gonna push it down some more. Sorry, I don't know what you guys can see and what you can't. Hi, babies. My dog bothering me now. I'm surprised that that is not angled properly. I just can't quite get in there. And there we go. Make sure that's on there good. Okay, nice solid crimped connection there. Nope, didn't quite get it. Still too loose for my liking. Nope, still don't like it. It's got to be right, guys. Sorry, I like everything right. I don't want a silly little wire popping off causing me issues and frustration, nor causing a customer issues and frustrations. And this one just wants to be loose. That should do it. Yeah, now she's tight. Okay, cool. Be a little bit harder if I have to pull it back off, but that's fine. Okay, now what I failed to do is I might have snugged my other wire, got it stuck up in there. I didn't. Cool. Alright. This is your kill switch. There should be a little place for this to clip into. Oh, there we go. Forgot a piece. See, human being. It's okay. Learn together. It's a great thing, you guys. We learn together. I've done probably a dozen of these saws in the past year, but that doesn't mean I remember every little detail every time. Especially when you add things like shooting a video. Now I know I have pictures of this to help me if I get a little stuck on it, but I shouldn't need them. The problem is I want to do this without taking the other aspect off. I forget exactly how this lines up, and so that's what I'm trying to figure out now. So, right. I'm going in the wrong spot, that's why. I just need to determine hey guys, I'm gonna, oh no, I know. This goes on here. Okay, so this wire, I remember now. This wire hooks on here, and then, except it's got a route. You have to route it through this groove. Okay, there's a little groove in this that it routes through and hooks there. It's a little bit tight. Usually, like I said, I'm used to there being a little more wire, I think, on these. I don't know why it's so short on this one, but it is. That's just the reality that I'll accept. Don't like it, but I'll accept it. If I can get my clip in. There we go. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see. Close. Let me zoom in for you. There we go. That's how that gets routed. And this other one's clipped right here. It has a clip. I didn't take the clip out on this one. It has this clip. Your kill switch will hit this to kill the saw when we shut it off. So it's just a matter of looking at how everything goes together. And I'm feeling like that goes facing up like this, if I remember right. And it will hook on. You can see this open aspect here. Sorry I can't zoom in. We'll hook on right here. It'll snap on, I should say, not really hook on. Yeah, I might have to look at the IPL. I'm struggling a little bit. Doesn't seem to be. I have pictures on my phone, but I don't want to end the video. I wanted you guys to see the last few things. I just took this apart the other day. That's the really funny thing. So you guys can laugh at me. That's how bad my memory is, unfortunately. Since I was run over, but I like sometimes just trying to figure out how stuff works. It's kind of cool. And I'll bet you I think I just saw it. So it's in there like that. It'll rotate down and coming out. Yep, I think that switch is just a different way than I anticipated. All right, so I think the wire has to come back out. You know, you guys, I could just simply look at pictures. I could look at a diagram, but guess what? If I do that instead of continuing to figure it out sometimes on my own, I don't remember. And clearly I don't remember. And so if I sit here and I have to figure it out, the frustration of all this time put into it, what's it going to cause me to do, at least in my way of thinking and working? I'm more likely to remember next time because I'm going to remember my struggle and my challenge. And so I'm going to do better next time. It's kind of how Jesus works too. When he teaches us how to live as human beings and have good character. We learn from mistakes and we learn from practice. And you grow with that. Okay, so that there in its groove. I think that wire has to be fed through. And then, well, I suppose what I need to do is that goes that way. So this guy goes through here. Ah, not much space to work. I think I remember that challenge when I took this saw apart too. Nope. Hi. The short cords are killing me today. Okay. Alright. For sake of checking this, I'm going to leave that out of the way for now. I'm at the verge of just looking at my photos. But, trying to learn patience. I don't think that's it. Okay, you guys, I have to look at photos on my phone or the IPL, unfortunately, because right now time is a factor. I am trying to be able to do this all and show everybody everything, essentially. So I will just try my best to explain the rest of this process here real quick. This will go in there like I had it. This is for your air filter holder. This will slide on your carb bolts. There's 2 holes in here. And it kind of serves as your gasket as well. And I know I don't have it all the way on there. This only lines up one way. You can see your carb bolts will go there. Okay, that will go on there. Like that. Okay, and then you'll have your air filter. Will end up going on this and twisting to lock. And then I showed you the muffler already. And then the only final thing we would have on this chainsaw, we've got our caps right here. Those are self-explanatory. With your muffler on the 271, you've either got a gasket with some teeth on it. I got 2 examples here to show you guys. Or you have a heat shield, which serves as your gasket. You don't need both. Some saws have both. These models, it's usually one or the other. Sometimes I see both, but that's typically because a customer thought that's what it's supposed to have. And then your top cover just goes on, sits over top everything beautifully. And you can either use your scrunch with a flat tip, right? Or you can use a T25 screwdriver. I don't recommend a drill. And those 1, 2, and 1 over here. And then that saw, you guys, would be put back together. So you see, it's really not as difficult as some people think. Again, we'd have 2 screws here, T25s for our spike, our felling dog here, And that's basically it. So I apologize for the, oh, the one other thing would be the throttle cable. It will end up being this part here on this model. This goes into your carb. You'll hook it into your carb, and then you will clip it. I'm sorry, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Okay. It's a little tricky to see. How can I explain it so you know? I don't know that I can, except the flat part hooks into, yeah, your carb. No, I think it goes like, oh boy. Sorry guys, yeah, late nights and trying my best here to teach you, and here I'm not remembering easy. I thought since I just took these apart I wouldn't have any problems explaining. So for sake of helping you, I thought that's right. That's what just came naturally. This certainly doesn't. Yeah. Okay, so this side hooks up, right? And this side's flat, all runs flat. That flat part is what I believe is going to end up hooking into your carb. This point points up, and it will end up pushing into this groove right here. And so let me show you that. This part, flat part into your carb, hook it in, and you'll already have this on. And then it will literally just snap in right there. Like that, okay? And it'll be in your carb. Okay? And that's it. And so that's your choke lever. And so what happens is when you end up, when this is on the saw, and you end up moving this lever, if I can show you guys, it will end up on this one. It's got a push. Your throttle will end up being out of the way. It'll just push your choke lever like that. So you'll do that, pull your trigger, and it'll hold your trigger or your throttle about 3/4 open. When it's engaged, your throttle can't come back. And then when you flip this up one, you'll be at 75% throttle and about 50% choke. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, you guys. I'm sorry. We'll continue to try to do better on the videos. If you have questions, I will answer if I see the comments. If anything doesn't make sense, or you're stuck on something on this model or any model, really, honestly, I like helping people out. If you have something you can't figure out, just email smallengineredemption.com or smallengineredemption@gmail.com, or comment below. I would really appreciate likes, share, subscribe, and the comments, you guys. And again, the videos will get better. The educational aspect, I will try to do more planning, but I hope this helps, you guys. God bless you.